Imagine your child flipping through an old Hollywood photo book and saying, "That was me." Not pretending, not playing a game, but remembering. Remembering things they've never learned, people they've never met, and a death they never experienced. Tonight, in episode 2 of my Reincarnation Series, we're exploring one of the most detailed past life cases in America. The story of Ryan, a little boy from Oklahoma who remembered living a whole other life as a Hollywood actor in the 1930s. Welcome back to Lisa's Haunted Cottage and to episode 2 of my Reincarnation Series, where we explore childhood memories that feel like echoes leaking in from another time. Tonight's case moves between two worlds: a quiet Oklahoma home and the glamorous shadowed world of old Hollywood. So light your candle and get comfortable and step with me into a past life that refused to be forgotten. Ryan Hammons was born in 2004 in rural Oklahoma, just an ordinary little boy in an ordinary home. But by age 4, around 2008, the nightmares began. Not cartoon monsters, not childhood imagination, but vivid, cinematic scenes. Bright studio lights, men shouting, hot lamps, old cars, a chaotic film set. He would wake up shaking and say, "It's too bright. They're yelling again. I don't want to go back." But when his mom asked, "Back where?" Ryan said, "Back when I was big." Ryan's mom often played old movies while she cooked or cleaned. Turner Classic movies, playing in the background. So yes, he saw little bits of black and white films, tap dancing, studio sets, old costumes, but nothing that explained what he was about to reveal. One afternoon, Ryan's mom brought home a library book filled with Hollywood photos. Ryan flipped through it like a picture book until he froze. He pointed to a man in the background of a still from the 1932 film Night After Night and said, "Mom, that's me. That's who I was before I came to you." This wasn't pretend. This was recognition. And then the floodgates opened. He described a white house with a pool, working at a talent agency, dancing on Broadway, traveling on a big boat to Paris, having a daughter, driving fancy 1930s cars, and dying from chest pain. Then he said he died at age 61. The man's death record, once it was discovered, recorded originally and said he was age 59. But deeper digging later on proved he was 61. This is one of the strongest pieces of evidence in the case. Ryan suddenly began acting, older. He insisted on wearing suits. He walked with his hands behind his back. He used old Hollywood slang, and he begged again and again to go back to old Hollywood. That's when someone suggested contacting Dr. Jim Tucker. Dr. Tucker is a child psychiatrist at the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, the world's leading center for reincarnation research. He doesn't encourage imagination. He doesn't lead children. He eliminates every alternative explanation first. When he met Ryan, it was different. Ryan didn't act. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't look for approval. He simply remembered. When shown photos of old Hollywood studios, Ryan pointed with familiarity. I worked there. Oh, I danced there. I live near that street. That's when Tucker began digging. He searched union files, studio archives, census records, death certificates, property deeds. Following every single breadcrumb Ryan gave him. The man that Ryan pointed to was eventually identified as Marty Martyn, a Broadway dancer, turned film extra, turned Hollywood talent agent. And almost every detail Ryan described matched Marty's real life. The house with the pool, the Paris trip, the daughter, the career, the long hours, the chest pain, the true age at death. It was all there. Eventually, Dr. Tucker arranged a meeting between Ryan and Marty's adult daughter. When Ryan saw her, he grew quiet. Then he said, I knew you when you were little. He told her private father-daughter memories. She cried. She said, there's no way he could know this unless he really was my dad. By age 7, something changed. The memories began to fade. The dreams stopped. The longing faded. The past life door quietly closed. So this story isn't just, understandably eerie. It's deeply human. This man who once lived a big, emotional, complicated Hollywood life may have returned decades later as a little boy, still carrying pieces of who he was. Whether you believe in reincarnation, soul memory, or a mystery science hasn't explained yet, Ryan's story reminds us that consciousness is vast, and sometimes a child is the one who remembers. So now my thoughts about this, when I started researching and looking into this story, I did dig quite deep. I didn't add, everything into this. There was quite a few details that Ryan gave, including the house that he lived in Hollywood as Marty Martyn. He literally gave the address. I don't think he gave the street address, perhaps, but he did give the name of the street. It was Roxbury Street in Beverly Hills. After researching, I believe it was Dr. Tucker, once they found out who this man was, which took some digging because he was mainly an extra, when he was in movies. He wasn't some well-known actor. It wasn't easy to find him. So he did name the street. They found the records, and they went according to records and found where Marty had lived when he was alive. I put that address into Google Maps, and I don't remember who lives there currently, but Jimmy Stewart once lived at this home as well. If you're not familiar with who he is He is the actor who played George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, one of my favorite Christmas movies. So anyway, the house does exist, okay? He also told his daughter there were multiple things that he said to his daughter that only he would have known. Okay, these weren't public things, things between a father and daughter. Now, when he died, when Marty died, she was on the younger age, 5 or 6, I believe. So some things she couldn't verify due to, not being able to remember, but he remembered what kind of car he had, the color of the car, taking his wife to Paris. Dr. Tucker and his mother, Ryan's mother especially, wrote down all of the things that Ryan would say to her about his past life. And pretty much all of the things that he told them checked out. The things that they could verify, the things that were documented, they were verified. And one of the reasons I like to have, a doctor and the record of a doctor on these types of stories is it offers more proof. And this doctor especially, verified a lot of the actual details, the records, when Marty was born, when he died. And the fact that Ryan knew the exact year when the death record originally was incorrect, that's a strong point of evidence for this story. Along with all the details, he said, I lived in a big white house, it has a pool, it had a pool, all of these other things. The fact that he was an actor, an actor, the fact that he worked as a talent agent, further down, because his acting career didn't really, he didn't end up being a leading man, so he took a different path with things. So the other things that are usually evident in these reincarnation cases, with these kids who are fairly young when they remember things, fairly young when they're, saying adult types of things. And I did want to specifically point out the fact that his mother did watch Turner Classic Movies. That network shows all old movies. That's all they show. And she did have it playing in the background frequently. But he was 4 or 5 years old. One, they don't have a large attention span. Okay. It only goes so long and so far, and it's not far at all. So he would have seen them. Yes, he would have, oh, mommy, what are you watching? That type of thing. Maybe stop for a minute or two. But he wouldn't have known details. And because Marty wasn't, a lead actor, he was an extra. He would have been in the background somewhere. That's more proof, because they wouldn't have said his name. They probably rolled it in the credits, I'm assuming, but 4-year-olds can't read that like that. So, excuse me, I need a drink. So that's the other thing that stood out to me. Even though his mom frequently had it on that channel, he wouldn't have known the details. And looking through the book, of the old Hollywood actors and the scene and, how Hollywood was back then, he wouldn't have literally pointed out, zoomed in on one photo and said, well, that was me, and then have the details all line up with this particular individual, the one person that he pointed out. So again, that type of evidence really fascinates me. when it comes to these reincarnation stories. The other thing that's also been proven by these doctors is the onset of the memories is usually, between the age of 2 and 5. And by the time that they're usually 8 or 9, the memories start to kind of fade away. I find that they often fade away after the past life has been kind of validated or proven. In Ryan's case, I did believe his went on for typically longer than they usually do. I think at age 9 and 10, he was still speaking about, excuse me, happens every time. He was still speaking about Marty's life and what he was remembering. So his memories lasted a little bit longer. But then once their parents or doctors take them to, a place that they're talking about, verify the information, things seem to settle at that point. It's almost like the soul is looking for some kind of closure of the last life that they lived. And once that happens, then things seem to calm down. And I find that extremely fascinating because it seems to happen with every one of these stories. Once they learn that information, then, the memories start to fade. Excuse me again. I always cough when I do these. Oh God, excuse me. My throat gets extremely dry. So anyway, that's one of the more fascinating parts with these stories, that, it all starts to kind of fade away. The two lives kind of merge more together. And then eventually, a lot of these children, I don't think they're not entirely forgetting it. It's almost like if you have an argument with someone and then you kind of hash it out and then you can move forward. It's trying to find something to compare it to. When they first have the memories, they don't know what's going on. They're having nightmares and visions that don't make sense to them. And then once it's all put together for them and pieced together, like with Ryan, he saw the photo. And as soon as he saw that photo, kind of opened the floodgates. And then he actually went to visit Marty's daughter, who verified a lot of the information. But there was another article that I was reading. I believe it may have been in Dr. Tucker's information. He said after the fact to his mom that his daughter had a different energy. And there was quite a few other things that Ryan said that were more spiritual or psychic in nature. That this boy at a young age was saying her energy was different. And the energy was different because he's in a new life at this time. And his daughter, she was a grown-up now, and she was young when her father died. So it would have been different. She wasn't a child. He was no longer an adult. It's like the role, it was vice versa. She was the adult and he was a child. So he felt the difference in energy. At which point he said something to his mother to the effect of, I don't want to go back to old Hollywood again. I like my life now. I like my life with you. It's like, that put it kind of changed how the soul was feeling about that past life. The energy, he said it feels, she feels that her energy feels different, which makes sense. So there was a closure there that happened to where his soul could kind of, move forward as Ryan and not Marty. The other things that I read about this story was he made reference to his mom in this life. He made reference to her life. He made references to, I believe, her past relatives, things in her life that he wouldn't have known at that age, very young age. Kind of like he was worried about healing her on a spiritual level as well. So perhaps, Marty Martyn, maybe he had some things going on with his mother, and that carried over along with these memories, Marty's memories, and kind of commingled into Ryan's current life. And these are the things that fascinate me so much about these reincarnation stories. There's so much to it. There's so many different nuances and things that go into each one of these stories. It all amazes me time after time. It amazes me. But I do like to share the stories here that have been more validated, by a doctor or historical information, instead of just a type of hearsay type of story. So hopefully you're enjoying these as much as I am. So thank you so much for joining me for episode 2 of the Reincarnation Series. If the story gave you chills or made you think, please like the video, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments down below. And tell me, would you want to remember a past life? Until next time, light those candles, trust your intuition, let the mysteries linger just a little while longer.